Do you remember that game back in school when you felt confident against your friend, and in just 4 moves you were completely crushed? You didn't even know what had happened, but you definitely felt the humiliation of everyone staring and laughing. What your friend pulled on you has a name. The famous scholar's mate. A cheap trick, a dirty shortcut that looks brilliant, but in reality, it's nothing more than winning with a childish trap. In less than X minutes, I'll show you how to deliver the scholar's mate. And even better, how to punish any pest who dares to use it against you. The idea is pretty simple. After e4 and e5, you bring your queen out and point straight at f7, the weakest spot in black's defence, because it's only protected by the king. Now, especially at lower levels, black might get tempted to push the pawn and chase your queen away. But if they do that, you can grab the pawn with check and basically win their rook for free. If instead black defends with knight to c6, you just keep developing with bishop to c4, adding even more pressure on f7. At this point, black has to be really careful. If they don't guard that square, they're done. And they can't play knight f6 to develop because that immediately loses. So usually they'll try again to chase your queen with the pawn, but now you can't take it because the knight is defending. Still, white has one last idea. You drop the queen back to f3, and if black makes a careless move, you can still win quickly. But here's the thing, if black actually knows how to defend, the whole trick backfires. The scholar's mate loses its punch, and black usually ends up in a better position. In fact, I'll show you a real game where someone tried this mate. Black defended properly, and then crushed white with a spectacular trap. The game starts normally. White tries the scholar's mate, but black defends exactly as we mentioned, first protecting the pawn, then chasing the queen away. Now black develops the knight to f6, blocking the checkmate idea. White pushes the pawn to d3, trying to bring the bishop out and keep pressure on the attack. But black knows this is a mistake. Knight to d4 hits the queen, and suddenly there's a fork coming. The queen has to retreat all the way back, and now black takes over. We open the centre with pawn to d5. After white captures, we keep up the pressure. Pawn to b5, bishop back to b3, then pawn to a5, threatening to trap the bishop. White tries to counter with pawn to c3, attacking our knight and giving his bishop a retreat square. But we don't back down. Pawn to a6. White takes our knight, but we immediately trade for his bishop. After a few exchanges, we reach this position. It might look equal, maybe a slight edge for black, but actually this is the beginning of the end. We jump in with knight to b4, threatening both a fork and a pawn. White can only defend one. If king to d7, they lose material after bishop f6, so instead white goes king to d1. Now we grab the pawn anyway, again threatening a fork. The only defence is bishop to e3. We continue with knight takes b2, check. White tries to chase our knight with his king, but we calmly play bishop to f7. The king takes the knight, and now the nightmare begins. Bishop takes with check. White blocks with the knight to save the rook, but we push pawn to b4, guaranteeing that knight will fall. White desperately tries to save it, but it's impossible after we capture. White recaptures with the bishop. Now black brings in the rook with check. The king hangs on, trying to defend the bishop, but after bishop to c5 check and rook to d8 check, the bishop falls. But it's not over. White tries to attack our bishop, aiming to grab the undefended pawn behind it. We move the bishop to safety. White takes the pawn, but black castles, ready to bring the other rook into the fight. And here comes the final mistake. White plays knight to f3, and suddenly it's mate in 3. Can you see it? Pause if you need. Rook to e8 check, rook to d1 check, and finally a rook to e1 checkmate. Black has completely crushed white, winning by turning the scholar's mate back against him.